What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another patron request video. Knocking these motherfuckers out, finally. Top 5 horror video games. Such an awesome topic chosen by Steven Slater, one of my loyal patrons. Very cool topic for me to get into because there has been quite a few horror video games that have been some of my favorite video games of all time. I'm not one that plays all of them, but luckily for me, it seems like the ones that I really take a chance on ends up being some of the greatest of all time, so I have tons of games to be talking about. I am going to give a few honorable mentions. I didn't want to do a full top 10 because I can just get into thoughts forever and this would turn into a 2-hour video. So I'm going to stick to the top 5, but for some other recommendations for you guys to check out, I'm going to give 5 honorable mentions, starting with Manhunt. This is basically a snuff film video game that came out for the PlayStation 2 by Rockstar Games. You play this guy who is basically, they fake his death through lethal injection and then they release him into this wasteland where there's different sections of the city sectioned off, and they have these people out there with hockey masks and machetes and all kinds of crazy shit, and they have cameras on you the whole time, and it's a stealth game where you have to go around and you have to do these grisly ass kills feeding this psychopath that is running this entire fucking show, basically making a snuff film. It's gory as hell. They actually have it on the PlayStation 4 as like a flashback thing you can play with, but it's very difficult to get back into like PlayStation 2 controller styles. It's weird, but very cool game. I remember always liking it. It's kind of an action horror game, and it's brutal as hell. Number 9 is going to be Outlast, one that you can play on current generation consoles. Have yet to play the second one. The second one might end up being better, I have no idea, but what was good about Outlast, it's literally you playing a reporter stuck in an insane asylum with these monsters and these psychopaths, and the only weapon you have is a camera. That's it, just a camera, night vision, and you gotta find batteries everywhere. And it's some of the best tension in a video game that I've played in a long time. Anytime you have somebody coming after you, you feel like they're actually gonna reach through the screen and choke you the fuck out if you do not hide in a locker and stay real fucking quiet. So check it out. It is a game that requires patience because, like I said, there's no weapons. You just basically have to sneak around. So if you're not into stealth games, you're not gonna like it, but very tension filled. Until Dawn Rush of Blood is another one that I'm going to give a shout out to because this is basically a gimmick game on its surface, what you would think it is. It's a rail shooter and it's for the PlayStation VR, but it is terrifying. If you have the VR, it's some of the most immersive shit you're going to find, where you're on this little theme cart ride basically going around, and there's all the different ghosts and clowns and demons and shit coming out, and you have to shoot them with your little rail gun, and it's terrifying. Like every single time something jumps out at you, with the VR, it feels like it comes right fucking here. And whoo, man, you want to talk about stressful. It's fun. It's a game you can replay constantly. It's great to play with friends because you can see who get the biggest scores. You can put your little cameras on and make little viral videos of your friends pissing their pants on the spots that you know something's going to jump out at them. Tons of good stuff. So definitely check that out if you had the PlayStation VR. Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1, what more can you say about this? I love Season 2 as well, just as much, but Season 1, to me, I have to talk about because it did it first. You got the character of Lee, who's one of the greatest characters in any of the Walking Dead versions of media you can find. You got Clementine, just the story of these two characters. I'm not even going to give you spoilers, because if you have played it, you already know what I'm going to say. If you haven't played it, play it. You can play it on the PlayStation 4, you can download it digitally, or you can buy the discs over at Best Buy somewhere. Play both the first 2 seasons. Season 3 is pretty good, but at least play the first 2 seasons. Some of the best storytelling you're gonna get in a video game. So emotional. Now we have the final honorable mention, and that is the Resident Evil Remake. It originally came out on the GameCube. You can also play it on the PlayStation 4. Now we got the Resident Evil 2 Remake coming out, but it's where they took the original Resident Evil, the story about Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine going into the Arklay mansion, and they retool it. They give it a new graphics update. They kind of make it more third-person feeling. It's not quite as dated as that original Resident Evil, and this is one of the best horror games out there. It's so hard to keep this off of my list. It was almost number 5, but I love it to death. It's a game that, if you want to just play old school survival horror, I don't think you can get too much better than the original Resident Evil, the remake. So definitely check that out, guys. Now, kicking off my top 5. Number 5 is the game, it was the first video game ever that scared the shit out of me, and yet I couldn't stop playing it, and that is the original Silent Hill. I never owned this video game. The woman who was babysitting me and my brother and sister for a while, her son had it, and I would constantly go and play it in his room. I would come over and borrow it on the weekends. I was addicted to this thing, and I have no idea why. It must be fucking masochism, because this thing would scare the shit out of me constantly. The story, the dread, the atmosphere, the way that the landscape would just change from regular foggy town to hell. I mean, oh my God, this game was the game that really let me know that video games can scare the shit out of you. You get the story of this guy going into Silent Hill to find his daughter. He gets there and just finds a wasteland with nothing but demons and witches and all kinds of crazy shit. I really wish that we could get like a new age HD remake of the first game, and especially the second game, because I'm one of the few people that love the first game. I never got a chance to play the second one, and most people say that's the best one, so who knows, that probably could have been on here too. But the first Silent Hill, man, if you could find a copy of that thing and you can have the patience to play an old game like the PlayStation 1 and get used to the controls of that generation, Silent Hill is a game that you must play. I don't remember enough about it, that's why I wish we could have a remake, but for the sake that I remember being addicted to this damn thing for months and it just scaring the shit out of me, I'm trying to find every single ending. I remember I'm looking up strategy guides, trying to figure out puzzles and all kinds of crazy stuff. This game, I belonged to Silent Hill until I wore that damn game out. So Silent Hill, that's my number 5. Number 4 for me is very recent, and that is Blood-Borne. Now this is a game from Software. They're the ones that do all the Dark Souls games. I never played a Dark Souls game before. I've played them, a couple of them since Blood-Borne, but they don't work for me as well as Blood-Borne. Blood-Borne is basically your Dark Souls setup, but to me done a lot better. It's a lot more fast, a lot more visceral, a lot more action-packed, where you're basically a hunter, and one of the things that, I guess all of these games do this, but especially Blood-Borne from my memory, it just drops you in the game, no instructions, no storyline, no opening cutscenes, no little introduction to what you're supposed to be doing, no hand-holding along the way, no little tutorial pop-ups. The game starts, figure that shit out. Have fun. If you die, you die. And it took me at least the first day of playing this game, because I never played a Dark Souls game, trying to figure out what the fuck am I even doing. I'd slay some of these monsters, I'd pick up these little white material, and then I'd die and lose it all, and I started realizing it's like a puzzle game. You go through, you unlock doors, if you die, you lose all of your, souls, I guess. I don't remember exactly what they call it, but you lose all the shit that you've collected. You have a chance to go back and recover it, but the game is about progressing, slow progression. You go, you unlock a couple of doors, you're probably gonna die, you'll revert back to your save point, then you go right back to where you were and try to progress a little bit farther. But one of the biggest things that this game has going for it is boss battles. Not only some of the coolest and most memorable boss battles that I've ever had, but fuck me in the face, hard as hell bosses to beat. I mean, to the point where, like, you want to talk about rage quitting? You do not know what the fuck rage quitting is until you have died for the 37th time trying to beat a boss on Blood-Borne. This is the only game that I have ever played in my life where I literally got to a point that I could not beat. I beat the whole main story twice. I beat all the boss battles in the actual core game. But when I got into dungeons, which is like this side story you can go on, and these little things to start getting extra weapons and everything, there was a boss that I encountered. I don't remember what the hell it is, but it was like a gigantic dog. I probably tried to beat that thing 100 times, and I am not exaggerating, and finally gave up. This is the one game that conquered Cody Leach, so it's number 4. Number 3 for me is another very recent game, and this is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, only because of the PlayStation VR. I mean, it's a very good game aside from that, but when you play this thing, immersed in that PlayStation VR, this is the most terrifying game you will ever play in your life. I guarantee it. This game had me on the edge of my seat the entire time, even on the second playthrough, because they swapped shit up and changed things up on you, and everything that you thought you knew where everything was, you knew it was around every single corner. Wrong. This game, the boss battles were unique to this franchise. It was a lot more like a Texas Chainsaw movie, especially in the first act of the movie. It's very fun. It switches it up to a first-person shooter, which I felt like was going to be weird, but it actually works very well, especially with the VR. And it has all your core Resident Evil gameplay. Scarcity of ammo, you got the green herbs, you got memorable boss battles, you got slow progressions and unlocking doors and, saving your game on typewriters, all the classic shit that you want in a Resident Evil game. But that VR stuff, I'm telling you, I have a video on here where I do a VR gameplay walkthrough. I have my review where I have snippets of me playing the game and I'm jumping and freaking out. If you want to have some little enjoyment seeing me get scared, check those reviews out. But this game scared the fuck out of me time and time and time again, all the way through to the end. The only negative I have with the game, honestly, which you can read my review, is I feel like it starts a lot stronger than it ends. But just for the memory of being scared shitless for the 8-hour gameplay, whatever it was, had to give this game its due, and I cannot wait to either replay some extra game, like some extra DLC for this game that still comes out with it years later, or if they do Resident Evil 8 and they keep this style of gameplay, I will freak out and I will buy it day one. So Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, please get the VR if you have not for this experience alone. And if you have a VR, go fucking around and get Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Now to the top 2, some people are gonna call bullshit because I have 2 games from the same franchise on my top 5, and I don't give a fuck. Number 2 is Resident Evil 4. I know it's a controversial pick because people love the first 2 games, like the core audience, you know, the real, true Resident Evil fans that you always hear online. But look, Resident Evil 4 was the game that got me into the Resident Evil franchise. I never played them before until I played Resident Evil 4, and this is the game that I have probably, maybe not, Metal Gear Solid might be my number 1 as far as games that I have replayed and beat the most times, but it's either that or Resident Evil 4. I honestly don't remember, but I have beaten this game at least 24 times. I mean, I played it so much on the GameCube, it got to the point where if I was bored one day, I could run through the entire storyline in about 3.5 hours. If I had like the typewriter, Chicago typewriter, and the fucking rocket launcher, and I could just destroy bosses, and I could play through this game in a couple of hours just to kill time and just continuously beat it. I played all of the, you know, the Hulk modes or whatever, where you have to kind of just lay waste and try to get high score on all these zombies. You play all the different characters. I've played this game to no end, and just the way the story unfolded, the way it was an action horror game, the boss battles, just to me, this was the game that just was innovative as hell for me, and it introduced me to a phenomenal franchise. I still love the first 2, especially the remakes that they got for the GameCube for the first one, and hopefully this new Resident Evil 2 remake. But Resident Evil 4, that's just a game that's so close to my heart, and I still, every single generation, I did it for PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, every time they re-release this for a new generation, I buy it and I play through it again. I'm a whore, what can I say? But my number 1 best favorite horror video game of all time also often competes for my favorite video game of all time. It competes with Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid probably is my favorite video game of all time for nostalgia and all those other reasons, but The Last of Us, this game is perfection. Please, before I even get into this, if you have not played The Last of Us, stop this video, go to Amazon, buy that shit, the PS4 remastered version if you have a PS4. If not, get it for PS3, but if you have a PS4, this is one of the greatest games ever made. The storyline, the characters of Joel and Ellie, the gameplay that's kind of like half action, half stealth, half survival horror, I guess thirds. A third's action, a third stealth, a third survival horror. Just the emotion that this game brings you in its storyline is unlike anything I've ever played in a video game. Like, I have repeatedly went through the story of this video game, and certain points in the story will choke you up and will grab you by your heart and soul. And I've never had a video game do that before. Like, Naughty Dog just knocks it out of the park with their video games. I love the Uncharted franchise, but The Last of Us, when that thing came out, that was like reinventing video games for me. And I cannot wait for part 2 that I think is beginning of next year sometime. Whenever it comes out, I'm gonna be there. The Last of Us though, guys, like, I don't want to spoil any of the storyline, but it's a story that you do not want to end. I mean, this game's pretty long. When you get into it, it just, every time a new season and a new chapter opens up, you're like, yes, more storyline. The game feels like it's coming to a crescendo and a climax, and then boom, yes, a new chapter. I'm telling you guys, I can't put it into more words unless I just do a specific review in The Last of Us, which I might do when The Last of Us 2 comes out. I'm telling you, this game is one of the greatest things I've ever experienced as far as video games, movies, music. I mean, it's beautiful. So if you're a fan of survival horror, if you're a fan of games that have a lot of storyline, a lot of emotion, brilliant characters, I mean, so much human emotion that just draws out of you, you cannot get any better than The Last of Us. And if you're just talking about pure gameplay, I'll talk about that too. This game is a blast to play. I mean, it's very tension-filled. You basically are in this wasteland where this plant-based bacteria has unleashed this form of the zombie apocalypse, and everybody is living in these little sections of the city that's been zoned off and protected. Everything else outside of that city are these monsters, and you have like these clickers that can only hear or can only see by sound, and whenever one of those fucking things hears you and starts coming at you, you want to talk about shitting your pants, and you're trying to get this character, you play as Joel, this man that's endured years of tragedy, trying to protect this little girl, Ellie, who presumably has the cure in her blood because she's been bitten and has not turned. That's the first time ever since this apocalypse that has happened. You're trying to get her across the country to this group known as the Fireflies, which is like this rebel outfit, so that they can try to extract a cure from her. So it's a survival horror story, but it's also a story about a father who lost his daughter and is basically finding his daughter anew in this new little girl who needs a protector. So please, I beg of you, play The Last of Us, because this game, I cannot tell you in words that will effectively express how much I love this game. So number one, not even a contest. Before I even wrote a single letter down on notes trying to figure out what my top 5 was, I knew what my number 1 was, and that's The Last of Us. So, top 5 horror video games, guys. Check out all of these, including my honorable mentions. Thank you so much, Steven, for this recommendation. This is a fun video to do. If you guys want to check out some more of my stuff, please like, share, hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. Look in the video description below for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spreadshirt for Cody Leach merchandise like t-shirts, and my Patreon page, which is a great way to join in the fun with Steven and pick videos for me to do, as well as get exclusive stuff like Blu-ray digital copy codes every week. All that is Patreon exclusive, guys. So check that all out. If you want to check out some more of my videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.